You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Bitcoin, Ether, Solana, Doge, and more. Cryptocurrencies and digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity, provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week, we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments throughout the world's leading crypto derivatives markets. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by Amber Data. If you're entering the digital asset class, you'll need access to granular on-chain and market data from multiple venues to power research, trading, risk management, and compliance. Amber Data delivers comprehensive data and insights into blockchain networks, crypto markets, and decentralized finance, empowering financial institutions to apply traditional finance methods to digital assets. Amber Data eliminates the infrastructure setup, integration challenges, and maintenance headaches to access digital asset data, reducing cost and time to market to enter the digital asset class. Learn more and download their digital asset data guide at www.amberdata.io. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of crypto derivatives. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back. It is Monday. It is time to roll out the Crypto Rundown, the program here on the network where we go beyond our traditional stomping grounds of, your Tesla and your VIX and your SPY options. And we see what's popping off in the world of crypto derivatives. Talk the volume, the volatility, the skew, all that good stuff, and a whole bunch more. My name, of course, Mark Longo from the Options Insider. Reminding you, if you're just listening to the Crypto Rundown, you're missing out on a whole bunch of other content. Make sure you're subscribed to the full network wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And of course, if you think you're ready to take that next step to go above and beyond, then head on over to the pro, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. I know a lot of you have questions about volatility in the markets right now. We have a great pro Q&A session coming up tomorrow with Mr. Vixologist, going to talk all about that. We had Dr. Vix, a.k.a. Mr. Russell Rhodes, in the Pro Q&A hot seat last week. So we've been talking a lot of vol, as you might imagine, over there. So you want to join us if you have some of those questions. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more as we learn who's joining us on the old crypto hot seat this week.
Forget about cold storage. It's time to turn up the heat on thought leaders from the world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time to take their place on the Crypto Hot Seat.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Crypto Hot Seat, the portion of the show where we welcome on guests from throughout the world of crypto derivatives and indeed beyond, and proceed to pick their brains for the benefit of you, the listeners. And next up is a newcomer to the program and indeed to the network. He is Mitja Goroshevsky, the CEO of Gosh and the creator of a new blockchain protocol called Acki Nacki. Mitja, welcome to the Crypto Rundown program.
Hey, Mark. Nice meeting you.
I can't say that without smiling, Mitja. So let's start there. Let's talk a little bit about your background in the world of crypto. And then what the heck are we talking about? What is Acki Nacki? The name alone brings a smile to my face, sir.
Which is great. So, yeah, I'm like I'm serial entrepreneur. I did my first company back in '95 in voice over IPs area. And then I transitioned from there to distributed databases, which might sound boring, but that got me introduced to Bitcoin very early. And it was fascinating, but not a lot to develop on. So when Ethereum started, that became more interesting. And so I followed that and I started several projects on Ethereum. And that's how I got introduced to Ton blockchain, which Pavel Durov back in 2018 wanted to start. And so we started a company called Ton Labs, and we did the full implementation of Ton protocol in Rust, and also a lot of stuff around that, like compilers, developer tools, infrastructure, and so on and so forth. And then I realized through that journey that, and of course, like Solana started more or less at that time as well, like a little bit later. And through analyzing all these protocols and what we did in Ton, I just realized we're not there yet. And this is not the way to go there. We definitely, like in terms of technical and technological progress, these need to go much beyond, much further than the protocols that we were currently then developing. So I started to think, like, what could this protocol look like? And that led me to 4 years journey to develop Acki Nacki, which is a new consensus protocol that then kind of was published in Springer Nature, Lecture on Computer Science last year. And we implemented that protocol. And now was the time to start the network. So that's how I got here.
I know some of our listeners are going to ask, so I'm just going to preempt them now. Where did the name come from? Are we talking you just tried to get something you knew you could buy the URL for? What's the origin of Acki Nacki?
Okay, in computer science, acknowledgement and not acknowledgement, there are two messages which are sent by the network when they acknowledge you're receiving something and not. So Acki Nacki is actually a computer science kind of term. But in order to explain the protocol, I came up with this actually like characters, almost like cartoon characters. I thought of Acki Nacki as a girl because how protocol works is like Acki Nacki is this node that listens to the network and verifies some blocks based on some cryptography algorithm. And then if the block is okay, Acki Nacki sends acknowledgement message to the network. And if it's not okay, she sends NAC and slashes the one who created something, malicious block on the network and so on. So that was the origin of the name.
I like it. Cartoon characters. I see the whole marketing campaign unfolding ahead of you. A children's show eventually. It writes itself, Mitja. But let's...
Actually, you are very correct. We are doing animation social
really?
about that.
There we go. I'll look forward to the first episode of the Acki Nacki show coming soon. But a lot of people are out there looking at the blockchain and ways to improve it, ways to make things more sustainable, faster, all sorts of things, more secure. And it seems like speed is at the core of what Acki Nacki is bringing to the table. In fact, you claim that no other blockchain could ever in the future of all crypto be faster. So let's walk through that a little bit. What is it that drives this claim? What is it that drives this underlying speed of Acki Nacki that supersedes all others?
Yeah, I know it sounds like a scam, but actually it's not. So this is how it goes. This fastest possible interactive protocol. Interactive is like we are talking to each other, that interaction, right? So I'm saying you something, I send you something, you send me something back, right? This is 1, 2. You cannot go below that. Otherwise, like it's just one. I just send you something, nothing happens, right? So it's not a protocol. When you send me back something, this is where the protocol starts. So logically, the most efficient protocol that can ever be built will only send these two messages, 1, 2. You cannot go more efficient than that. And that's exactly what Acki Nacki doing. Acki Nacki is a probabilistic consensus protocol that reaches consensus in 2 communication steps. That's how science goes. It's actually not entirely correct. Like it's three messages, but because two of them are in parallel to each other, it makes it in terms of time two. And that's therefore no other protocol will ever be more efficient than Acki Nacki, only the same.
We had a lot of guests on this program over the years, and one of the issues, obviously, we come from a traditional markets perspective, and our viewpoint here is, the application of crypto to the world of finance and indeed derivatives. And for a lot of people, especially in the early days when everyone was adopting the blockchain, it came to be seen very early on that it didn't seem like the traditional blockchain really could scale to meet the needs of something as large as, the US financial system, stocks, let alone options and all the strikes and everything else they have to deal with. It's an enormous question of scale. So the next question I have for you, Mitja, is do you think something like Acki Nacki, in addition to being fast, do you think it could handle the scale for something like, let's say, eventually moving financial transactions like a stock or an exchange or a liquidity book into this protocol, Mitja?
Yes, that's what we built it for. That's exactly, it's the same thing. Actually, there is no difference between kind of speed and scalability in that respect. Because Acki Nacki is a multi-thread. So it can go in parallel. Like it can process things in parallel, in basically scaling almost limitlessly in terms of the more resources you commit to it, the more it will scale. And it will process this in parallel. And in fact, your today's TradFi financial software is built on cluster databases, right? You need a database, and then obviously you don't need to store it in one place, so it's always cluster. And the consensus protocols for the cluster databases, like for example, if you take consensus protocols such as Raft, for example, right? They are actually work exactly like Acki Nacki. So Acki Nacki, in fact, adds just a layer of security on top of, because it's Byzantine fault tolerant protocol, meaning that this is a protocol which built for parties that are not trusting each other, because in cluster computer you trust, like everyone trusts each other, right? In our case, we cannot go with that in decentralized finance. We need computers to be able to operate without trusting each other. So what we build is actually the protocol, which is very similar in terms of efficiency to cluster database protocols, but that don't need to trust each other, the participants. So actually, yes, we built it for this. You can build the TradFi kind of infrastructure on top of Acki Nacki, absolutely.
Well, you mentioned security. That's obviously another important aspect for anything that's going to be applicable to the financial markets. I think you said recently the odds of a successful malicious attack on Gosh is not just less likely than a successful attack on Bitcoin. It's less likely than an asteroid hitting the Earth and wiping us all out tomorrow, which is somewhat of a dark comparison, Mitja, I'll give you that, but also shows you have a little bit of faith in the security of your protocol, Mitja.
Yes, I mean, it's okay, the protocol is probabilistic. I'm not going to explain what it means, but it counts the probability, like Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a probabilistic protocol as well. It counts the probability of the attack, right? It's, of course, the math goes behind that. It's not a dark comparison, actually. We say like this, what would be the security, like the ultimate security for probabilistic protocol? Well, if the probability of life continues, like if life not continuing, then who needs the protocol, right? So we thought that's quite a good comparison with that. Now, in fact, the security of Acki Nacki is dynamic, meaning you can change it. You can put the parameters that you want. If you want the parameters to be that secure, you can do it. Of course, the more you add, it will affect certain performance metrics in Acki Nacki if you can go beyond this point where you increase the security. So if you indefinitely increase the security, it will, on certain point, it will indefinitely increase the resources that you need to run the network. But you don't need that much of the security probability, actually, because we all use cryptography. And cryptography, for example, is also a probabilistic system. And so the possibility of someone breaking a hash or a signature or a cryptographic signature, it's more than enough, right? So you can go up to that, more or less.
Well, one of the other big sources of controversy out there when you're talking, any protocol, any development, whatever you're talking about. You're talking blockchain, traditional Bitcoin, you're going to go the Ether, Solana route, whatever it is. There's a lot of talk about gas fees, how much they are, how efficient they are, and who pays them. Sounds like you're not charging any gas fees, Mitja, which raises the question, who's paying for all this?
All right, I'll explain. It's not that we're not charging at all the gas fees. I'll walk you through this. Logic is very simple. Take AWS, like Amazon Cloud. If you're a developer, you go into Amazon Cloud, and you want to run your server, you will get the server for free. The first server you get, like Elastic Cloud 2 or something like that, you get it for free. Now, when you pass a certain amount of operations on this, on the server, they will start charging you money. But until that point, you're fine to go for free. How do they do that? How that works and why we can't do that on the blockchain? Actually, if you think from the blockchain perspective, like you are a validator, you bought the server to run this network, right? So you already committed resources. You have some processing power, you have some disk storage, you have some network, which you're already committing, you're already paying for, and you compensate it with tokens for validating this, right? So this resource is already paid for. Why do you need to pay for these resources one more time? You can actually give these resources for free for someone who want to run their small dApp on the network and so on. But once they start scaling and you will need to provide them more resources, they demand more resources, then you can demand payment from this DAO or this decentralized application, the dApp, to pay you for more resources exactly in the way that Amazon doing that today with AWS servers.
Obviously we focus on the trading side and the impact there in the crypto markets. It's certainly been, I think, to put it mildly, turbulent on that front. It really kicked off in the crypto space immediately after the election, of course, with the prospect of less regulation. We saw an impressive run up across the board, Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, all the major crypto assets really rallying, coming into this year pretty lofty. And then, of course, we've seen all the market tumult that has resulted in the last few months out there, big sell-offs in even some of your Solanas and your ETHs in addition to Bitcoin. I'm curious from your perspective, Mitja, A, what are your thoughts on just this extreme amount of volatility we've seen in the broad crypto space so far this year? And B, from your perspective, you're out there, you're launching a new protocol, you're trying to bring adopters online and get people excited about this. Does that make that more difficult with all this other Sturm und Drang going on, Mitja?
Yeah, well, I'll take the volatility first. If you compare it with volatility of the normal TradFi markets, I think it's nothing. We're not volatile at all. Or the Dow, like wiping $2.75 trillion from the market. I don't think we ever saw that in crypto, but okay. So we have, everything is volatile right now. I wouldn't, but we know the crypto is volatile market, which I think is fine. Right, we know that over time, it's usually pays off and usually pays off big time. And we're not taking the short perspective here. When you launch a network, we're not launching a network for the next 3 months or 6 months or 1 year or 3 years or 5 years. Like we believe this protocol will live like for long period of time. So when you talk about that, you compare it with the run of Bitcoin. I think what is important when you look at this, all of these projects that you mentioned, Solana, ETH, US, Sui, Aptos, whatever, you need to take in the fundamental of tokenomics. And for me, fundamentally of tokenomics is not how much you gain in 3 months, but what will happen, like in general, to the appreciation or devaluation of the value of the token over the years. And what will happen? We only have Bitcoin, which is kind of in terms of tokenomics, has this deflationary model. All the rest of the protocols are trying to, I don't know, for me, sometimes I think they're trying to create another stablecoin or something. Because like they try to algorithmically balance the demand and the, with some deflation, some inflation. I mean, it's even hard to understand how it's supposed to work in the first place. But we took very simple, with Acki Nacki, we took very simple approach. We just copied Bitcoin and we just did adaptation of Bitcoin for proof of stake. And we think, like, again, this is a long-term project. We're not looking at the next 3 months. So how do we build value over time? And the value over time is a deflationary model following the curve of Bitcoin because it works and then trying to adopt this to proof of stake model. I'm not going deeper right now, but it's actually was very hard to do. It's actually surprisingly hard to do, to take Bitcoin model and make it in a proof of stake work, but we did it. It's 54 pages document with a lot of math.
Well, Mitja, I appreciate you taking some time out of your day in a very turbulent period across all assets right now to talk to us a little bit about Acki Nacki. But before we go, we like to leave our audience wanting a little bit more. So give us a little bit of a hint, a glimpse of what they can look forward to. What do you folks have up your sleeves over there in Acki Nacki?
Well, first of all, we need to launch the network, which right now currently in the testnet, and we want to launch it quite soon. We closed $6 million financing for doing that with some great VCs like Kingsway, Huck VC, and so on. And now we are actually, with the launch of the network, releasing a game. And we're doing a tournament before the network launch with some $500,000 in prizes. We have more than 300,000 participants already registered, with some also more than 40 teams, esports teams that signed up. And we will do that just before the network launch, so it will happen in May. So that's what we're doing.
Oh, that's great. And if our listeners, they're always down for a little bit of gamification. If they want to try their hand at your game, where should they go? What should they do?
AckiNacki.com. Simple as that.
There you go, listeners. AckiNacki.com. It may sound simple, but I challenge you to spell it, listeners. It's AckiNacki.com, listeners. Check it out over there. If you're intrigued by everything we're talking about here, the speed, the gas fees, the security, and maybe a little bit of gamification sprinkled on top. Maybe you're here for the cartoon characters. Hey, to each their own. You can also give them a follow over there on the Twitter/X. It's at Acki Nacki Chain. Easy for me to say. Acki Nacki Chain. AckiNacki Chain. All one word. Well, Mitja, I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to talk to us. And good luck with the upcoming launch. We'll have to bring you back on down the road to see how it all went.
Thank you very much, Mark.
All right, listeners, now we have to keep on rolling. It is time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trending activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, listeners, let's get to it. Always fascinating to have new protocols coming online out here. Always like to have more options for you folks to plug away at, try out. Maybe it's faster, maybe it's more secure, maybe you like the cartoon characters, maybe you like a little bit of gamification. All of the above, and it's got just quite the name, Acki Nacki. If the Rock Lobster were here, he would accuse me of bringing them on just because we like the name. But either way, listeners, fascinating stuff. Check it out. Are the Bitcoin markets, are they fascinating right now? Well, if you're hanging out in the hodler chair, then the answer is yes. We are looking a wee bit north of where we were this time a week ago. We were 79,112 on the show last week, so about 1,000 handles below the 80K mark. This week, 84,902, so almost 6,000 handles, about 5,790 handles above where we were this time last week. But I'll give the same caveat here that I give on all the other shows right now. If you don't like where Bitcoin is, just wait 5 minutes. We're in that kind of market, listeners. Remember, if you want to check out all this data we're going to talk about here for yourselves, amberdata.io, the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. They have that graphical interface that is all completely free for you folks now. All the newsletter, everything else, you can get a lot of great data completely for free. So you literally have no excuse. amberdata.io is the place to start your journey, listeners. If you did that, you'd see that the weekly vol, the 7-day vol, coming in quite a bit. We were at a 65 on the show last week, 53 this week. Is that the same on the 30-day vol front, the more standardized vol measure? Well, the answer is it's lower, but not quite as dramatic. It was 55.5 on the show last week, 52 this week. So coming in 3.5 points out there. And if you're going out all the way to where the hodlers hang out, 180 days and beyond, listeners, that 6-month vol was at a 55 on the show last week and about that same level right now, 54.5. So no real evolution there. So nearer dated vol coming in and your monthly vol coming in slightly since our last show as well. I'll go out to the skew. Let's see what's cooking out there. And it was kind of interesting. Last week, we were kind of all over the place. We had a bit of a flat to positive weekly skew and then a pretty bearish Monthly skew, we're kind of flipping that around right now. The weekly skew is now swung back to the negative. It was 1.5 to the upside on the show last week, negative 3.6. Again, weekly skew is very much a moving target, listeners, and depends where we take that snapshot, what we're going to see. But obviously, that's going to be the most responsive to the intraday swings. Going out to the monthly side, again, a more standardized skew metric as well. That was almost a -5 on the show last week, so we're looking pretty dire. Again, we were below 80K. Whenever we break through those important psychological levels, that's usually reflected in the skew. Now that we're back north of it again, a lot of that has mitigated. We're back down to still bearish, but only -1.5, which is pretty close to flat. And then going out to where the hodlers hang out, 180 days, listeners, we were positive 1.5, which was about the borderline threshold for that upside call premium to pretty much go away. And it's still at that level right now, positive 1.5 right now. So interesting stuff going on out there. Let's see if there's interesting stuff in some of the other products you folks like to sling. Well, let's go out to IBIT first. 48.25 when we kicked off the show. It puts it up 3.25 points from last show. So getting a nice little lift out there. The ADV 373, so only up about 1,000 from where it was this time last week. Looks like we're going to hit it today. 369 on the tape already. So a decently active day out there in IBIT. If you're wondering what's the most active contract today, it's the 25 calls expiring on May 2nd in the weeklies. That's interesting. Going up about 23, almost 24,000 times. If you're wondering, looks like almost all of that was one big block for almost $23, listeners. So an interesting choice, and in the money, pretty heavily in the money. Call. That's a choice out there, listeners. 22.92 when IBIT was a little bit lower, 47.75 pretty much. So an interesting choice out there, listeners. Like we also have the April 25s going up around the same time. Similar size. Looks like we might have a bit of an in the money roll going on out there, listeners. Either way, a pretty active day. What's the vol out here in IBIT? It's a 54. It's up 4 points from where it was this time last week. And in terms of size positions, a big dog out there in IBIT right now, about 50,000 of the May 50 calls, listeners. Yes, the 5-0s. So are you down for a little bit? That's only 1.75 points away at this point, listeners. Fascinating stuff out here in IBIT. Let's keep rolling out here to BITO, listeners. What was popping in the land of BITO, listeners? And is that about an 18.5 when we kicked off the show? Up 1.5 points from where it was this time last week. The ADV 34,000, down about 2,000. And it's putting up exactly 34,000 contracts today. So there we go, listeners. Hitting its ADV, a reduced ADV, I should point out, but still hitting its ADV out there right now. Let's see what the big dog is out there today. About 2,000 of the 19.5 calls expiring this week. So $1 out of the money calls. And then in terms of size OI, the big dog in BITO, 34,000 of the September 26 calls. We've talked about these before, listeners, on recent shows. But now it's time for us to keep on rolling and explore the altcoin universe.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, listeners, time to talk a little bit of altcoin. Let's see, on the show last week, cost you about $20.5 billion to break into the top 10. That got you to Cardano. This week, we're still hanging out at Cardano, and spoiler alert, it's a little bit higher. $22.6 billion. So ticking up about $2.1 billion to break into the top 10 this week. Are you slinging some Cardano, listeners? Number 9 is Tron. Tron seemed to have a death grip on the number 10 spot. Now climb into the number 9 spot, $23.9 billion. Number 8, it's Doge. Love it or hate it, hanging out there at 8. 23, oh my goodness, just slightly different. They're both about 23.9 billion. So it's really a tie for 8 and 9 this week, listeners. Number 7, USD coin, 60.1 billion. Number 6, it's Solana, 67.25 billion. Number 5, it's BNB, because of course it is 83.4 billion. Number 4, XRP, clawing its way back a little bit this week, 125.7 billion. Number 3, it's Tether, 144.3 billion. Number 2, it's ETH. Did it finally catch a bid? I guess we'll find out, listeners. $198 billion with the market cap, and the big dog Bitcoin, $1.685 trillion on the market cap front. Let's get out to ETH now, listeners. You know the story by now. I hate to keep repeating myself, but ETH has been a bit of a dumpster fire this year. Pretty much all year, it's been the number one or number two losingest assets when we crunch the numbers over there on our futures rundown show. It's just been a rough time for the ETH bulls out there. Getting a little bit back this week. I guess that shows you the frame of reference we're in right now for ETH listeners, where we can get excited by a roughly 78 point pop in ETH. That's how much we got. 1567 on the show last week, 1645 this week. At this point, ETH bulls will take what they can get. Vol-wise, ETH was looking spicy last week on the weekly vol, 97.6. Coming in a wee bit this week, down to about an 80. Same deal on the monthly vol, 77.25 last week, 73 this week. And hanging out on the 6-month vol front, no real change. 70 last week, 70 again this week. On the skew front, the near-dated skew, not quite as bearish, I think for obvious reasons out there. It was almost a negative 15 on the show last week, negative 14.5. I think it got as low as negative 21 over the weekend. This week, only a negative 5. I put only in air quotes. Most weeks, that'd be looking pretty bearish. These days, not so much. Getting out to the monthly skew, we were almost at a negative 11 on the show last week, negative 10.65. That has mitigated quite a bit as well. Not quite 7 points, but pretty darn close to it. Still negative, though, negative 3.85 on the monthly skew. And getting a little bit of juice back. We were talking last week on the show. It seemed like that ETH hodler call premium was pretty much gone. It was only a 0.6. That's about the lowest we've seen it. Maybe ever. I'll have to go look and see. There have been some dire periods where I'm sure it was a little lower. But for the most part, there's always some sort of residual call premium in most major crypto assets. That was almost gone. It was only a positive 0.6. That has ticked up, but ever so slightly, only to a mere positive 1. Let's run through the rest of the altcoin universe and what we got here for this week, listeners. Solana, 107.40 on the show last week, 130.40 this week, up whopping 23 handles exactly. So a good little run for Solana. XRP, 191 last week, 216 this week. So our buddy, Mr. Bill, he was talking to me off the air last week about some Solana, or excuse me, XRP adventures. His wife really into XRP for whatever reason. So that's up a quarter, so she'll be happy this week. Doge, 14.8 cents last week, 16.1 this week. Litecoin, 70.8 cents last week, 77.25 this week, up almost 6.5, about 6.45. Cardano, 57.8 cents last week, 64.1 cents this week, up about 6 cents. Polkadot, 360 last week, 375 this week, up a whopping 15 cents. And everybody's favorite, maybe your least favorite, Shiba Inu, a million zeros, 1138 last week, clawing its way back ever so slightly, a million zeros, 1218. All right, that is going to do it for us on the crypto rundown this week. I want to thank our guest, Mitja Goroshevsky from Gosh, the creator of the Acki Nacki protocol. Every time I say that, listeners, it brings a smile to my face. Check it out for yourself. Acki Nacki, ACKINACKI.com, the place to go. Maybe you want to try out their little game, $500,000 in prizes. It's not the worst thing out there. And of course, while you're checking things out online, make sure you're checking out our friends over there at Amber Data, amberdata.io, the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. That's going to do it for us on the Crypto Rundown today. Back again exclusively for our pro members with a great pro Q&A session, a much needed, dare I add it, pro Q&A session with our good buddy, Mr. Vixologist, tackling all your questions about all things vol. Get them in there. If you're not part of the pro yet, what are you doing? TheOptionsInsider.com/pro. Then back again with our usual doubleheader on Wednesday of the Futures Rundown and Options Bootcamp. Thursday, from the Southern Studio, the Option Block, and This Week in Futures Options. Off for Good Friday listeners this week. That will extend, unfortunately, into the weekend. I'll be traveling back on Monday, so no Crypto Rundown next week. Back again in 2 weeks with our good buddy Greg from Amber Data to talk all things crypto on the Crypto Rundown. We'll see you there. And stay safe out there, everybody.
The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by Amber Data. If you're entering the digital asset class, you'll need access to granular on-chain and market data from multiple venues to power research, trading, risk management, and compliance. Amber Data delivers comprehensive data and insights into blockchain networks, crypto markets, and decentralized finance, empowering financial institutions to apply traditional finance methods to digital assets. Amber Data eliminates the infrastructure setup, integration challenges, and maintenance headaches to access digital asset data, reducing cost and time to market to enter the digital asset class. Learn more and download their digital asset data guide at www.amberdata.io. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.